Good morning, everyone. I'm Jane Wells, and I am a junk food junkie. It's true. I grew up on Taco Bell. I still like my Taco Bell, and I try to convince myself that my salsa packet is one of the fruits and vegetable servings I need to have every day. One reason that I do that is because it's fast. We are so busy. Or in the early days, it's because it was cheap. Eating healthy in America is expensive and it takes time, and that's why so few of us can afford it or take the time to be healthy. Even in Santa Monica, okay, we're not talking about the middle of the country, where I go often and I see a real obesity problem. You see it here too. Even in Santa Monica, they just released a study on well-being, and they found that more than half the residents of Santa Monica do not exercise regularly, and 1 out of 4 do not have 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. I don't have 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. That got me a little bit excited about doing it. So today we're going to talk about how to make healthy living accessible, affordable, and still profitable. Because Campbell's Soup and Herbalife are not charities. This is a business for them. So how do you do that and grow that business, lead or follow, and make money? We have a all-star panel here to talk about it. We're going to have a discussion, and then we'll have some time for questions afterwards. Everything about what is healthy is changing. Fat is good. Cholesterol maybe isn't bad. It's all about protein. The Wall Street Journal reports overall U.S. food sales were flat last year, but food labeled organic, gluten-free, or GMO-free rose 13%. And marketing is responding. Nestle's removing our artificial colors and flavors. We have Pepsi changing its artificial sweetener. Campbell's selling V8 protein bars with pea protein. So let us start with sort of an opening mission statement from each of our panelists. First, Anu Chatterjee, the managing economist at the Milken Institute. Anu?
Thanks, Jane. Thank you very much for being here today. Let me start by giving you an example of how a small lifestyle change, one small step towards a healthy choice, can have a big impact to your health and to the economy. So slide 1, please. So recently, we published a report called Drink Different: Feasible Strategies to Reduce Obesity. And what we tried to show was how empty calories, and many of you know empty calories are all those added sugar and fat that's added to our food, and that does not do anything but just adding calories. There's no nutrient that's added because of that. So we wanted to measure how empty calories, and we did that by using consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages in the US, how that's going to affect obesity. And obesity is a leading factor for so many chronic diseases. So we looked at, next slide, the third one. Go to the next. Thank you. So we looked at the consumption of sugar-sweetened beverages in the US from 1999 through 2010. And after using all other factors that can contribute to obesity, by the way, we looked at the 26 market areas that was consuming almost 80% of all sugar-sweetened beverage consumption in the United States. And what we saw was in 1999-2000, there were about, on average, 19 12-ounce cans of sugar-sweetened beverage that people were drinking in a month.
Really? And that's like more than one every other day.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that has been falling. The good news is falling. And these are USDA data, by the way. And if the trend continues, we project that it's by 2030, it should be about 9 cans per month on an average. But today, if we change our habits, we just change a little bit. We are not saying give up drinking sugar-sweetened beverage or give up eating unhealthy food. Change a little bit so that in 2030, people drink on average 3 cans less per month. That's not a big thing, and that's an attainable goal, right? Then what we saw was, next slide, please, that that will actually have 2.6 million fewer obese people in 2030, and the healthcare savings that will be generated over these 20 years is to the tune of $26.2 billion. That's huge. So what you need to do is take a small step today, and that's one of the things we all as consumers believe. what can I do to change the healthcare cost? Because I cannot change so much, right? But you can do that. You do your small part, and the effect will be there. So that's the thing. Going back to the topic, we need to create and implement an ecosystem that would actually nurture the culture of health, healthy choices. And once we have that, there are two things which we have to really nail it. One is the fact that people should know, there should be a clear messaging that there are healthy options, because many consumers don't even know that. And second, what can be the incentives so that they actually embrace those healthy choices?
I think that's the key. People, I think, are aware of healthy options, but how do you get them to change? How do you get me not to have my
right? But there are lots of
burrito,
people who still don't know that
combo
there are
burrito,
choices.
which I love.
We'll come back to that.
Okay. Next is Dr. Bill Dietz, who used to be with the CDC with obesity. He now directs the Sumner Redstone Global Center for Prevention and Wellness at the Milken Institute School of Public Health at George Washington University. Bill.
Thank you. It really is a great pleasure to be here, and thank you all for coming. I think I'd like to begin by just extending the context with Anu began. The positive information is that there is a plateau in the prevalence of obesity in the United States among both children and adolescents and adults. And even more encouraging, there are declines in the prevalence of obesity among our youngest children, the 2 to 5-year-old age group. And I think those data are robust and credible. It's worth asking why these declines have begun to occur, and there are at least 2 or 3 trends which are significant. Anu mentioned sugar drinks. I think sugar-sweetened beverages is too nice a title. They really are sugar drinks. And sugar drinks, fast food, and including pizza, all have an impact on excess caloric intake. So that if you drink a sugar drink or you consume fast food or pizza, now tacos have not been studied, but on those days when you consume those foods, your caloric intake is in excess of what it usually is. So that, for example, when a teenager has pizza on a given day, they consume 600 calories on that day of pizza. And they only compensate for about 2/3 of that. So about 250 calories are in excess of what they would consume on a day that they don't have pizza. And what's encouraging is that pizza consumption has declined, fast food has declined, and the same is true of fast food as is of pizza, that is, on the days you consume it, you consume excess calories, you don't compensate for them. And sugar drinks have declined. And that's all encouraging, because we know now that the caloric deficit, the gap in calories, needed to return children and adults to where they were in the 1970s, before the epidemic of obesity began. And to do this on a daily basis and restore the mean BMI, the mean body mass index, to where it was in the 1970s, is 30 calories a day for 2 to 5-year-olds, 150 calories a day for 6 to 11-year-olds, 180 calories a day for 12 to 19-year-olds, and 220 calories a day for adults. So those are achievable targets, and there are a variety of ways of getting to those targets, which I think are going to be the topic for further discussion, such as improved access, restructuring the environment, economic strategies, and informational strategies. And I think the informational strategies are those that have driven the shifts in the consumption of fast food and sugar drinks in much the same way as per capita tobacco consumption began before any of the policy and environmental initiatives were started back in the 1970s. I think the same thing is now occurring with respect to obesity, and I think you'll hear more about the strategies that will achieve these changes in the next hour.
Well, fast food is down. Fast casual, the Chipotles of the world, of course, are doing very well, very healthful. Although I have to tell you, you get a burrito at Chipotle, that's 1,200 calories. It may be healthy calories, but it's still 1,200 calories. You go to Taco Bell. I hate to keep harping on Taco Bell, but you get a burrito there and it's 350.
Do you own stock?
I know. Yum brands. But it's a sort of thing where also, again, it's actually, you could argue, healthier to eat a quarter pounder with cheese than a venti caramel frap at Starbucks, because you get more protein. But But the marketing, no, in the mindset, people are, well, I'm going to Starbucks, it's healthier, and I'm going to McDonald's, oh, that food is terrible for you. It's all in sort of, I think, the information and marketing.
Well, those changes are irrefutable in terms of fast food and sugar drink consumption. We don't understand necessarily what people are substituting for those foods, but the consistency of those data, the fact that we're seeing declines in the 2 to 5-year-olds, and those are the groups in whom the most modest changes in caloric intake are going to drive changes, is encouraging and suggesting that people are making quite different choices and healthier choices.
And before I move on, you were saying, on average, the average American adult should reduce his or her diet 220 calories to return to a healthy BMI.
Right, in the population of adults.
Right.
The deficits necessary for people with significant obesity to reduce are much greater.
Right,
They're in the hundreds of calories, not 220 calories.
But just as a total, okay. All right, Michael Johnson has been in the health business a long time as CEO of Herbalife, which has been the topic of much debate outside beyond his control. But the business continues to innovate and move forward. What are you seeing?
Well, Jane, I'll just give you a quick background on Herbalife, and thank you all for being here today, and thank you for having us. Company's founded in 1980, started with 2 basic products, a protein shake and a fish oil product, an omega-3 oil. So we were very much on that. Yeah, we were very ahead of the marketplace, but it was built around a personal business proposition, and that's what seems to get all the press, which is the side of the company where we are in a personal commercial space to give people an opportunity through good nutrition to build a business. And with that side, put aside just for a second, we've transformed the company purely into a nutrition company that uses a direct sales model to get to the marketplace. And we're in a lot of these food deserts with a novel concept called Nutrition Clubs, started in Mexico, came to the marketplace here in the US, and globally now we have 100,000 of these clubs where people enjoy an opportunity to get what we call a shake, a tea, and a hug in there, because it's a social community that's built around better nutrition, better health, and it's an economic opportunity for the operator of that club to enhance their own lives. And these marketplaces that they are in are not going to be Beverly Hills or in this wonderful area that we are in now, but they tend to be in South Central LA and in poorer neighborhoods where those food deserts are, and those food choices are just horrible. And what we're doing with the company, and very proud of, as we've seen our growth quadruple over the last 10 years, is to take ownership of our supply chain, from the crops that are grown into the ground to the manufacturing, through the science. And we have our head of science here, Dr. David Heber, and we are very proud of the fact that we are giving people a nutritional opportunity in the marketplace for a low-calorie, highly nutritious meal to start their day or to continue their day, and to get off some of these sugary drinks that we're talking about down here, and to educate people in those environments about a healthier choice in order to make a better life and a longer life, and obviously a life that's got a nutrition at the base of it. And in these clubs, there's a ton of education that takes place about nutrition. And in fact, I'll just throw one slide up because it was kind of interesting to us as we were trying to figure out how to prepare for this. I think it's slide number 10. We did a quick survey of this area, just I think in a 5 or 6 mile radius around here, and we called every school in here and asked them about their nutrition classes and nutrition training. Not one of these schools offers a nutrition class. So we're turning kids out.
You're kidding.
Not one of them.
What about home ec? Didn't they teach nutrition?
You and I had home ec class. But this is the 70s and 60s we're talking about. Now, I'm sure you were in the 80s, but I'm a child of the 60s. But anyway, so what is taking place is that kids are not educated about food. They don't have good nutrition choices when they go. They think a Happy Meal is a meal. And so the concept of food and nutrition is lost on them. And where we're coming into play is that these clubs that we have around the world are educating people about better nutrition choices. And so when you look at something like this, you're turning out a generation, although Dr. Dietz said that we've maybe hit a plateau in obesity, we still have a long way to go.
I'm just curious, because I think I read Whole Foods is trying to actually invest in farmland because the supply chain is so constrained, especially for organic, and that's a whole other story. Right. But so you control the production of your, like say, pea protein or rice protein?
Soy protein. We do not own farmland, but we work with our farmers and with our suppliers to make sure that our seeds are known to us and they know exactly our sourcing.
Is that, how much more does that cost to do it that way? I mean,
well, we've invested $150 million in supply chain improvements over the last 10 years in the company, so it costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, good nutrition costs money. We're in a marketplace where we've replaced nutrition with sugar, salts, and fats because it's cheaper and it's commoditized. And then when you come with a nutrition product, and I think our food companies are starting to really figure this out, nutrition's expensive. And to get good nutritious product and to control your supply chain and to have the ability to have good product out there, whether it's through Whole Foods or whether it is Whole Food itself or whether it is foods like ours, it's an expensive proposition.
Right, but what I find so interesting is that you can now get, I don't even need to go to Whole Foods now a lot of time. You can go to Sprouts or Vons or Ralph's and they have plenty of organic and at a much lower price point, so there's still some way to do it and maintain margins, although on your side, it's a little bit different than the grocery side. That's just what I'm more familiar with. But we will get back to that in a moment. Ryan Shadrick Wilson brought us that great video at the top. She's Chief Strategy Officer and General Counsel at the Partnership for a Healthier America. I guess it was something like that. You nudge the consumer and corporate America will follow? Is that sort of, what's the push-pull in that? That's a very effective video. When am I going to see that?
Ooh, good question. So that is fully, to me, a demand-side effort. But the core of our work for the last 5 years has been very supply-side, working with food companies on improving the availability, accessibility, affordability of healthy options, which is very important. But you can't do that and not have the consumer demand being built up at the same time. So this was an effort to directly go at what we saw as a completely skewed food marketing landscape. We know that currently about $2 billion a year is spent on food marketing to kids, and only 1% of that $2 billion is spent marketing fruits and veggies to kids. Presumably, those are the things that we should be eating the most of. And then when you look at the type of advertising for fruits and veggies, it's a little bit finger pointing, finger wagging. 5 a day, more matters, they're really good for you, eat them, your mom said so. And so how can we compete? Right. How can we compete when the other guys have the cool music, the super slick advertising, the beautiful people? And so we decided, well, we'll go get the beautiful people. And so,
what a concept.
What a concept.
How did they get beautiful? We
decided that we would launch with a big group of partners, and Jeff can talk about this too, because he has been a complete inspiration behind this campaign, that we would launch a new big iconic brand, FNV, Fruits and Veggies, and that we needed a slick logo, and that we would enlist a celebrity roster, and that we would go toe-to-toe with the big guys and use the same tactics they use. And we're not in market yet. That's a teaser video. But we will be within the next 4 weeks, and we're doing another photo shoot tomorrow with a whole slew of celebrities.
Are you going to buy TV space, or where are we going to?
TV, yes. We're going into 2 lead markets first to go deep and get a lot of really good data and proof of concept with TV, radio, print. A lot of digital and social concepts are coming too.
How much is that costing?
That's a very good question. We're a nonprofit. So a lot of what's coming has been in-kinded and donated. Not one celebrity has been paid yet. We haven't even paid for hair and makeup, which is, if anybody's worked with celebrities, phenomenal.
Yes.
Yes. So there have been a group of partners that have come together that really believe in this, that are throwing dollars behind it and a lot of in-kinded resources, which has been beautiful to watch on the backside. To the consumers, it should just look like a cool new slick brand with a lot of humorous, sort of tongue-in-cheek advertising. But behind the scenes, we're public health motivated. We just want to move the dial on fruit and veggie consumption.
But don't you think, I mean, if you look at a Subway ad campaign, it seems to me a very commercial version of that. Or if you get a Happy Meal now, you get milk and apple slices. I mean, there seems to be stuff happening.
Yes, it's happening. It's starting to happen. Change is accelerating. I mean, as I've said to our team, I think we are in the precipice of a massive cultural shift when it comes to health and healthy eating. And those companies that are getting out in front are going to win. And we have worked with companies like Subway that their commitment to spend a huge proportion of their marketing budget on ads that are promoting their healthier options and piling on the veggies, which you'll see in a lot of their advertising now, was a commitment to us that we have applauded and have worked with.
Do you have any sense if it's working? Are people piling on the veggies at Subway?
Yes. So we made a mistake early on in that in our partnerships with our 150 corporate partners, we have a whole rock star group of CEOs now that have come on board and made commitments sort of in their lane, that we didn't request the data to start building those case studies. So we have some case studies. We have Bird's Eye Frozen Vegetables made a significant commitment and saw a 20% lift in brand lift. We saw Quick Trip, which just it's a Midwest convenience store chain, which is starting to offer healthier options in convenience stores, which is typically not where you find the healthiest options.
No.
Has seen a 5% increase in sales. So some of those are starting to come in, and we've just decided to sort of double down on our effort and case studies so we have more proof of concept.
Okay, Ryan, we'll talk more in a minute. Now, Jeff Dunn is I feel like sort of ground zero of what we're talking about here. He's the president of Packaged Fresh at Campbell's Soup, and he remains chief carrot officer at Campbell-owned Bolthouse Farms. He used to work at Coca-Cola, so you've been in the food business a long time. Is it the consumer leading you leading the consumer? Explain to me where you see this going.
Well, good morning. Welcome, everybody. I think two things are happening. Broadly stated, the consumer is becoming much more educated, I think, because of digital content. If you go back 30 years, your only source of information generally is the newspaper, television, and so it was difficult for people to find information. There's a lot of disinformation around food. Your point about being a junk food junkie. The one thing we know, though, is in that kind of mass ubiquity brand marketing, which Coke is world class at, they really focus on three things. They focus on availability, ubiquity. They want to be as close to you as the decision to buy a drink or a bag of potato chips. They want to be seen as very affordable, as an everyday kind of affordable product. And mostly what they want to do is associate themselves with things that are cool. If you look at their marketing, ultimately it's really about that associative imagery. And what's happened is that model we've tried to port over into fruits and vegetables. That's where F&V came from. Because the belief was if you just tell people to eat their fruits and vegetables, it is finger wagging, they're not going to do it, and the data is very, very clear. What's happened in the last 5 years is there has been a real shift, I think consumer-led, really moms and school districts and others looking to deal with this problem, partnering with health professionals. And it's not just obesity. The thing that's not understood about this problem is you may not be obese, but you may have many disease states associated with obesity as a function of a diet too high in sugar, too high in saturated fat. So as really millennials have come into childbearing years, I think that's the defining moment. 80 million of them in the United States, and they want their kids to have a different kind of relationship to food. So we feel a real push coming from consumers looking for healthier options. I think as much as the First Lady has done, and there's been tremendous progress made on this, I can't talk enough about how her leadership has changed this dialogue. We still have a tremendous way to go. And at the end of the day, big brand companies, I sold my company Bolthouse to Campbell's 2.5 years ago. Campbell's bought us for one reason, to have a healthy, fresh platform, because they looked at the research and they said, in simplest terms, the growth in the food business in the developed markets around the world is going to be about fresh, it's going to be about healthy, and the data's like this. Broadly stated, center of the store category, shelf-stable food and beverages are flat in the United States, almost across every category, some down, some up. And you've got massive changes in ingredients going on just this week. Pepsi announced no more aspartame in Diet Pepsi. Chipotle announced non-GMO across the board. Tyson announced no more human antibiotics. These are very positive signs of the change, and there's only one reason these companies are doing that. Their consumers are demanding it, and they're demanding it because there's more transparency. So that trend is going to continue, and in all deference to your junk food junkiness, we can help you with that.
No, I'm all over the map so far. But let me ask you this, because especially coming from Bolthouse Farms, there is such demand for non-GMO and organic, and I am a cynical, suspicious person. And in fact, I cover ag for CNBC, and I'm on the farm a lot. And to hear farmers talk about certified organic and sort of the fraud within that certification process, and whether, you know, something really is organic, and do you end up spraying more because it's non-GMO, and should it be like this? When you are sourcing, what's your concern about that? I mean, you can slap on, this is natural, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm afraid that then you jack up the price 100% and consumers buy it, think they're getting something healthier when maybe they're not.
Yeah, I think conventional versus organic farming, the numbers are roughly, organics are growing at 6 times the rate of conventional.
Yeah, they can't get enough land for it. It takes 3 years to convert, right?
Right, so there's a big push, and there's a huge issue with converting enough land. Underneath that, though, if you ask consumers about what does organic do for you, they can't tell you. If you ask them what GMO is, they can't tell you. What they know is they're hearing this drumbeat around organic is better for you, and if you really double-click down, what they'll say is, you know, it limits the amount of pesticides that are coming into my body. But that's pretty sophisticated consumer. So you've got these labels. Natural's a great one. Natural was one of the fastest growing labels the last 20 years. Natural really doesn't mean anything.
No.
And in fact, when you double-click into it, in all deference to many of my friends in the food business, unfortunately, marketers tend to pick up these labels and want to slap them on without really understanding the underlying science. And so we need better food science in these companies to really understand what's going to help people live a healthier life and what's really just a marketing tactic. Many of these things, I think, are more marketing tactics than fundamental in changing the food system.
Right. I wanted to ask you, what's the next cutting edge? You were mentioning something to me where monitoring, self-monitoring?
Well, we're looking at very carefully the idea of measurement. And I think, and you saw it today with, there was on your network, Jim Cramer had a big thing with Theranos on there about measuring blood very quickly and very easily and doing a simple test to determine the characteristic of your blood, what's the nutritional characteristic that's in your body. These are all coming much faster than people realize, whether it's Theranos or other companies that are going to be able to do this. And if I'm in a big food company like Jeff's talking, I'm looking at that and I'm a little scared in my seat right now because people are going to be able to measure what goes in their body much more effectively, and this is Moore's Law. It's coming in the next 5 to 10 years. We're looking at a lot of these systems. We have a little competition inside the company right now. We all did omega tests in the last few months to see, and you just take a little blood, you send it in, you look at your omega 3, 6, and 9 content in your body. Most people have no idea what the difference between an omega 3, 6, or 9 is. An omega 6, that's the bad stuff. The omega-9s, real good. Omega-3s, that's your fish oils, fantastic for you. But nobody knows these things. It's going to become part of the language of nutrition, of our future. We're trying to look at models that we can get through our distribution network that are safe, productive, that people will actually be able to measure the nutrition in their body. And those who are peddling sugar, salts, and fats are in for a very bleak day when they're looking at that, because people will be able to do a very simple, you know, a constant measurement. You go to a doctor now, and sorry for the long answer here, but
no, I like this.
You go to a doctor now and you get a blood panel and they'll talk to you about an LDL and HDL. And they could give you, I don't know, 150 panels, Dr. Dietz and David. I mean, you could go through, and there's this whole other subculture about, oh, people get too much information. You shouldn't give them that much information because they'll make bad decisions. This is the whole genomic discussion. This is the impaneling of blood discussion. All this are, and I say phooey on that. Give me as much information as I can possibly get. I want to make good choices for myself, and this is when people start taking responsibility for themselves more. We'll lower the cost of health care in this country and around the world by giving people a simple measurement-based activity that will say, okay, your nutrition is in good shape, your nutrition is in horrible shape, you need more omega-3s, you need more protein, you need more carbohydrates, you need to have better minerals in your body. This is all coming, and we are studying it, researching it. We're trying to find, obviously, a method to the marketplace for it, and we think once we get this in the hands of our distributors and our clubs around the world, because we have that unique last mile connection that a lot of people don't have. We have somebody talking to you every day about your nutrition, working with you, helping you lose weight, exercise, doing something in the community, whether it's a walk, a run, getting involved in a triathlon, something like that that builds the whole person. So that's why we're very excited about the future.
For some reason, it makes me think of TrueCar. It's like the TrueCar of health. Like, okay, this is what I need. I've done a test on myself, so here's my certificate. I need this, 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 this.
Yeah, and then you'll have to customize nutrition around it.
Right.
And we think we're very well situated to be able to do that in the future.
Anu, how much is it going to cost for us to change our habits?
That's a very good question. Actually, maybe nobody has that answer right now. So a few years back, there was this 16 companies, 16 giant food companies. They actually pledged that they are going to reduce, calories from the marketplace. And if I can bring up slide number 6, so slide number 5, please. So what happened was they said, like, by 2015 they want to reduce the total number of calories, 1.6 trillion calories from marketplace, and they are going to replace it with low-calorie foods. And by 2014, actually, they have gone overboard. There were like 6.4 trillion calories were removed. And there are folks at Hudson Institute who actually did some study based on these 16 companies. What were their sales growth? What was the profit if they were selling low-calorie food rather than the original high-calorie ones? So if you go to the next slide, this is what was found is those who actually went for the low-calorie food products and changed their menu from the high-calorie ones, there was an 82% sales growth, and that actually created 1.25 billion in sales. So there was a sort of a incentive, financial incentive, why the companies should invest in low-calorie products, because what's happening is, as Jeff was mentioning, and I thought this is true, that we are going through a dramatic demographic change. And the Generation Y, Generation Z, they are very different. So they love kale. And it's still very difficult for me to believe that kale is a regular
Just have it
diet
with bacon. Just put
Right.
bacon in it.
So in
Quinoa.
or something
Or
else.
put it
I
in a
don't know.
burrito. No, I don't know. I'm kidding.
Quinoa.
Probably I have to put
Quinoa, exactly.
ghee, because I'm from India, and like that's a butter, and that actually blocks everything, all your heart veins. So, but just joke apart. In slide 7, if you can put it up, this is what's happening, and this is what's going to change, what's going to drive the demand for healthy foods. So if you look at the Generation Y and Z, and most of them fall under the millennial group, you will see that the growth, the demand in fresh food consumption is rising much more than the percent change in their population. We all know as you grow older, probably that's a psychology, that you eat more fruits and vegetables. Why? Don't ask me, because I'm not a psychologist. But that happens. But when you are adapting to increase fruits and vegetable consumption at a later age, then the growth is much more flatter. But if you see that at the younger generations, they are already starting to adopt more, eating more healthy, that growth is going to go at a higher trajectory. So, and that's good, that demand is going to grow. So that's good for the investors. So you see the demand is there. We have little evidence now that marketing healthy products are actually profitable. So still we have a long way to go, because this is the beginning. And the challenge is still that, as we have already mentioned before, that it's affordability. So when you go to the grocery, even if you have healthy food available there, the challenge is the unhealthy products are way cheaper than the healthy products. So it's not just making the products cheaper, but the relative price. That means when you look at the price of the healthy versus the unhealthy, should be comparable. Otherwise, there's a challenge,
Well,
and
that's
that needs
hard.
to be done.
That's hard.
That's hard, and that's where the organizations have to come forward. And as we can see that if you actually do that, and businesses realize that that's not only morally good, but there's financial incentive to that, that's going to happen. It will take some time. It cannot happen on one day. We cannot just, somebody cannot come over there and just in a magic wand they change everything. So any movement needs some time. But more and more companies have to realize the fact that if you try to do that, if you lower the price, the demand is there. So basically, even if you are lowering the price, the amount you can sell, you can recoup
Make up
that.
in volume.
Right. Right.
Dr. Dietz, I was reading there's some interesting things going on in your very workplace. What sorts of healthy changes are you seeing in terms of just office, stand-up desks, that kind of thing?
Well, let me, I will answer that, but let me broaden that discussion, because I think what you're talking about is how do we change the environments in which people function. The discussion to now has been about how do we change demand. But there has been enormous progress in restructuring the environments, particularly those for children around food. And this administration deserves a lot of credit for that, because there have been more substantial changes in food programs under this administration than since Richard Nixon's White House conference. And those include federal programs like the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act, which has changed the school lunch. This has been much maligned, but the studies that have been done show that plate waste has not increased, that kids are consuming increased amounts of fruits and vegetables as a result of that program. The competitive foods, which have removed some of the higher calorie foods from schools. The upcoming program on the Child and Adult Care Food Program, which is going to set standards for food served in early care and education. And the labeling that's part of the Affordable Care Act is probably not going to change consumption as much as it has already changed reformulation of foods. And Starbucks is a good example. You may recognize that in order to lower the calories that are labeled on Starbucks products, what they've done is to reduce the size of those foods.
But still charge you the same.
That's right. I mean, it's a good deal for Starbucks.
Yeah.
The other, and those are changes in the environment at a macro level. There's some other changes that can occur in smaller environments like work sites. For example, a group of hospitals in Boston all agreed to label their sugar drinks or the drinks that they provided in their cafeterias with red, yellow, or green dots indicating the acceptability of those drinks in terms of calories. And Mass General Hospital put the drinks labeled red around the corner, which is a form of what's called choice architecture, where the way you structure an environment drives food consumption, and showed a reduction in the consumption of the red items and an increase in the consumption of the green items, and as a result made money on it, because the green items are largely the bottled waters. The same thing is being done in cafeteria lines, where if you make the less healthy options harder to reach, you change consumption patterns. And those are some of the types of strategies that are being used increasingly in workplaces, particularly for the Fortune 500 companies, which have a big operation. Just those types of regulatory and environmental change policies, I think, will have a decided effect on consumption, and we're already seeing evidence of that.
And in your own office?
Well, and so we're in a Platinum LEED building at George Washington University Milken Institute School of Public Health. And one of the environmental changes there, well, there are a bunch. So that, for example, we have lactation rooms to promote breastfeeding. We have exercise facilities with yoga classes. We have standing desks, which increase physical activity. We have central stairwells, which are open and inviting, and people are using them. We don't have a cafeteria, but we are instituting a healthy food at meetings policy, so that the choices available at meetings are acceptable and nutritious. We haven't had a pushback by the removal of cookies for afternoon conferences, but this was something that we instituted when I was still at CDC. Not only at CDC did we not meet in cities that still had tobacco or smoking in place in public venues, but at the CDC meetings, we promoted healthy foods at meeting, which I think it helps, at CDC, if we're going to, and the Milken Institute School of Public Health, if we're going to talk the talk, we have to walk the walk and structure our own environment in a way that's healthy.
What was the hardest part of it for you personally, the hardest thing to adapt to? I would think a standing desk.
No, actually it's not, because I fidget. I think one of the unknown things about factors which predispose to obesity is fidgeting. that this non-exercise activity thermogenesis is the formal name, but the more people fidget, the less likely they are to become overweight or develop obesity.
Oh.
And so at a standing desk, you know, you're moving around. I'm moving around. There are conference calls that enable me to walk around the room rather than sitting in front of my telephone.
How important is it to find the next big thing? Like, you know, I saw apples. To me, apples and oranges are boring. We talk about kale, there's quinoa, there's every kind of plant-based protein powder is out there. Actually, what I like about LA is it's such an innovative place for food in particular. There's so many disruptors and startups here. There's actually the largest producer of plant-based protein powder in the world is based here, Axiom Foods. They have a rhizotine, which is a rice powder. They also do a pea powder and all that kind of thing. So how much do you have to find in anyone, the next big thing? And can we make people want to eat apples and oranges? Or should we just say, hey, look what's happened with Brussels sprouts. Okay, there's my case in point.
Let me take two things. One, can you make people eat apples, oranges, broccoli? There was a broccoli campaign put together by the same people who did FNV for us as a test. It was actually done. Michael Moss, who's a writer for the New York Times, did it, and it was in the New York Times Magazine. So they developed this whole broccoli campaign. Then 2 students at Yale University liked it so much they took it to New Haven into these underserved populations and got people to donate space, you know, bus benches, those kinds of things. They saw consumption of broccoli in New Haven go up 18%. So marketing works, and what most of the big brand companies know deeply is marketing works. The problem is we don't have enough marketing for the healthy stuff. If you look at the relative ratio, we have way too much noise out there on unhealthy and not nearly enough on healthy. So we've got to redress that balance. And when you talk about, you know, this is expensive, it's more expensive, you know, the biggest cost to our society in the next 30 years will be the cost of obesity. It'll make tobacco look like child's work. So when you say it's expensive to eat healthy, I'll say it's expensive not to eat healthy, and we're all going to pay the price.
But is your company now investing in marketing more of the healthy stuff?
Absolutely. I mean, Campbell's paid $1.6 billion for a carrot company. If that indicates that they put their money where the mouth is, it should. The other piece on disruption is I invest in a number of companies with some VCs in San Francisco. The hottest space inside kind of double-click into tech is food and ag tech. And the reason is they see the example someone gave me the other day, big food is like telecommunications in the 80s, big fixed landlines. Think about big scaled up plants. And what's happening is here comes mobile. You know, here comes digital. And digital to that space and mobile to that space is equivalent to what's happening in disruption. And it's not going to look like just taking an ingredient out. It's going to be whole new systems of providing people.
Give me an example of a company that you're in.
Well, one I'm not an investor, I wish. There's one called Blue Apron, which is teaching people how to cook. They'll ship a box with everything componentized for you to make a meal, because if you don't know how to cook, and many people in our society don't, they'll give you a recipe card with pictures, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's $9 a meal, which not everybody can afford. That business now has 3 distribution centers up. It's scaling just like this. So it's a good example of disruptive kind of technology which disintermediates kind of the traditional food system. And I think we're just at the very, very early stages of this, because it's a huge market. It hasn't been disrupted. And you know, the VCs in the world, if you talk to these millennial students coming out of Stanford, they deeply believe in plant-based diet for environmental reasons, for health reasons, and so they're very committed to it. And they bring the education, and the capital is there to support it. So I think there's going to be a huge shift in the next 10 years, and many large multinational food companies are already on it. We're in the midst of thinking about a VC fund to play in that space, because new kinds of models, in order to access this disruption, are going to be critical for big food companies to evidence.
Ryan, you wanted to say something.
Well, I wanted to say something similar to what Jeff said, but then I got very excited about what he was saying, which is off in a different direction. But you asked a very hard question, a very good question, but a very hard question about how much it will cost us to make all the changes we need to make. And I wanted to say something similar to Jeff, which is, the good question is, what is the cost to us if we don't make these changes? And we know, and we can lose sight of it when we talk about how exciting the VC space is and all these disruptive things that we can do, and there's a new flashy advertising campaign. But we currently have the first generation of children that are expected to live shorter lives than their parents, 5 years shorter, which is really scary given all the progress that we've made in other aspects of our life. We have 1 in 3 of our kids that are overweight or obese, and by 2030, we're expected to have half of the US adult population obese. That is a massive public health crisis. It's a healthcare cost crisis. It's even a national security crisis.
And it's an American crisis. It really is a U.S. crisis.
No,
which we export to
global.
the world.
But I'm telling you, when I travel other places, you can always tell who the Americans are.
Yeah, but we export our
True.
food and our food service establishments
Yes.
to the world. You go into China, Kentucky Fried Chickens are everywhere. And I'm not, slamming Kentucky Fried, but I'm just telling you that style of eating is everywhere. We're in 90 markets around the world, and we see the obesity epidemic, increasing rapidly everywhere. There's not a country anywhere that is taming back on it. There are healthier marketplaces, but there's nobody is tramping it down. And it's exactly what Ryan just said. This is the cost of this to countries that can't afford it is amazing. You can't, we have the luxury in the United States with a great economy to have discussions about things you can't have in Argentina. You can't have discussions. They can't even afford themselves, let alone how they're consuming food and what they're thinking about in terms of healthcare. And it goes right to what Ryan said, a generation that will live less long than their parents, will be less healthy than their parents. It's hard to fathom. That this is a reality around the world. And just to answer your other question about new food sources and things, I know what many companies are doing, and what Jeff mentioned and what we're doing is we're looking for new sources of protein. And well, I'm not going to tip the hat on some of the things we're doing, but we've got some very innovative thing. We have a small VC style fund inside our company that goes out and works with people who are developing new areas of protein for us, and we're very excited about what we're seeing in a couple very specific areas. And I think it's going to change a little bit of the landscape. You're going to see more farmed ideas of protein, and I'm not going to get into whether it's plant or animal or things.
Synthetic.
Not synthetic, but you'll see there's some new innovative technologies that are coming that are very, very exciting, and it's going to bring potentially a lower cost, wider supply, healthier source of protein into the marketplace.
I want to save a few minutes for questions, but before we do that, I want to ask each of you, what is the one thing we could do today personally to make ourselves? I remember once I interviewed David Murdoch, the CEO of Dole Foods, who wants to live forever and may just get there. I said, of all the things you sell, what would you eat if you could only eat one? And he said, the berries. I would just eat the berries if you were going to do one thing. So, Jeff, let me start with you and go this way. What's the one, carrots, no. What's the one takeaway that if I go home today, I'm going to say, I'm going to start trying to do that?
I think at the consumer level, it's as simple as making one choice a day to eat something healthy versus unhealthy. We're really only talking about a shift here of about 100 calories, kind of on average across all demos. And that's why the school lunch program is so important. You start thinking, I hate to be negative, but the agriculture commissioner in Texas was quoted yesterday as saying he supports eliminating what the First Lady worked so hard is to get these new school nutrition standards up, to basically walk away from them so they can serve sugar drinks and fried foods in Texas schools. When that mindset exists, we have a huge problem socially, because we have to get kids to understand that this is about their vitality. This is about the long-term economic benefits that come with a healthy society. So the way you make change is you make it one step at a time, but it needs to be environmentally contexted in a way that people can have the support. That's why Michael and Herbalife is so important, that last mile. It's hard to change behavior. You need support, and we don't need people out there saying, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. And his rationale for this was, everybody in Texas is fat anyway, so what difference does it make? That's a direct quote. That's a big problem.
Well, I think there's a lot more political there than the overriding all that.
I thought Republicans were fiscally conservative. Who is going to pay the $800 million bill that's coming due? You are, and I am. And so this is the most fiscally responsible thing we could do. It's not about free market. It's about good governmental policy, good social policy, and a healthy environment for our kids. And anybody who debates that, Sarah Palin's, I'll tear the cookies out of my dead hand. That rhetoric goes against the health of our children. Forget your political orientation.
But you can see how people rebel against being nagged, if you want to call it that. The First Lady's being nagged by the First Lady. Don't tell me what to do.
You can't nag it. You've got to create.
Exactly.
And by the way, all these athletes, NFL players, all these celebrities, when you ask them, they have nutritionists, they have trainers, they wouldn't, in all deference, eat Taco Bell because their livelihood is their bodies. So, we have to change the cultural conversation in this country to, a triple cheeseburger is, can be fun, but it's really not something you should be doing. And we've got to elevate healthy living in the cultural sense as something that's important to all of us and can be fun.
Yeah, but when the triple cheeseburger's on the dollar menu and you're getting food stamps, that's the problem. Gwyneth Paltrow couldn't last a week on the food
We could have some change in our agricultural policy around those issues, which would raise the price of corn, sugar, salt, those things. Our policy has supported making those products very inexpensive. They're not expensive by accident. They're inexpensive as a function of our agricultural policy.
You go after the corn lobby, I want to watch that fight. That will be, that's...
And why is the corn lobby so strong? Because presidential elections have to run through those areas.
Right.
And you got to go to Iowa and you got to pay, And so, again, that's how politics, that's great, but who's going to pay the tab?
We got off track there. So reduce 100 calories. Make a choice. Make it one choice a day. Ryan, thoughts?
Sort of just want to say amen, brother. But just put simply, it's just about making the healthy choice the easy choice. And so that doesn't mean getting rid of your favorites at Taco Bell. It just means that also on the dollar menu should be a healthy choice.
Right.
For all people, not just for us and those living in Santa Monica. All people should have the healthy choice, the easy choice. And they can make their own choices.
Michael?
Well, I'm going to be an advertisement. I want blueberries, fish oil in an Herbalife shake. That's what I want to live with.
And what will that do for me? Blueberries and fish oil. Well, you get your David
your
Murdoch
antioxidants.
berries.
You're going to get your good fatty oils in there, your omega-3s and omega-9s. You're going to get carbohydrates, protein, and you're going to get a great source of minerals.
Sold.
That's all you need. Well, besides Jeff's carrots. I'd throw some carrots in there too.
Carrot juice, yeah,
Carrot
that'll work.
juice. All right.
One of the things that we touched on but didn't dwell on was the issue of disparities and the unequal distribution of obesity and access to food across the population. Unless we solve that problem, unless we figure out how to provide good food at low cost to the variety of underserved populations, we're not going to solve health.
What's the main thing we could do to do that other than, subsidize with taxpayer funds to bring fresh produce in Salinas Valley down?
Well, access is one that in many neighborhoods, as I think Anu alluded to earlier, that there's no access to healthful foods. I'm not suggesting that supermarkets in those areas are going to change the problem, but at least they provide a level playing field. I think that I'm interested in what impact increasing the minimum wage will have on increasing the likelihood that people will have more choices and consume better choices. They certainly can't do it on $7.25 an hour, but I think that's I think there are people much better suited than me to figure that out.
Anu?
I just want to add one comment to the disparities issue very quickly. Recently in CNN Money, I read this news that McDonald's is contemplating in actually including kale in their menu. And that was like, nobody knows, it can happen in 2016 or it would never happen. But the very fact that even people are thinking that, that's great, because if you see where all these neighborhoods where they're poor neighborhoods, most of the time you'll see companies like McDonald's and others are there. And that's one of the ways you can actually try to resolve disparities, because if McDonald's is offering healthy choices, that's one step ahead. So that's one thing which I wanted to add. But going back to your question, what I can change, what I can pledge to change today, I believe in everything you do in moderation is good. So my issue is I take too much calories. Maybe I will change something in my diet today that will lower the total intake of calorie. And that way, I don't feel that I'm going to fall off the wagon. So I can do it a little step by step. Or I have a standing desk now. After everybody in our company had it, finally I said, okay, I need it. It's peer pressure. Maybe I will do something more. I might go for a walk every...
Get a treadmill desk.
Treadmill desk, or something exciting. Or I'll just join the spin class every afternoon. So I can do I can change things. I believe in that if I take a small step, that's possible. So that's one of the things what I cannot do by myself, but all of us need to do together, which I believe is really important, is to streamline information. There's so many information. First, sugar is bad, fat is bad, now fat is good. All these things confuses people. What should I go for? And that's where I think the medical professionals, the policymakers, businesses, everybody should come together to streamline that information and pass it on. This might be good for you, this is not good for you. So
you know, we're actually out of time, so I want to thank the panelists. And if folks have questions, you can probably touch base outside. Thanks,
you,
folks.
Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you.